Megadeth has officially released their 17th and last studio album a few weeks ago. Yeah, I'm pretty late, sorry. Anyway, since I made a short a while back talking about the upcoming release, and some folks have been asking me my thoughts, I thought I'd make this little video to talk about my opinions on the new self-titled record and see what other people think about it. Naturally, I'm just gonna be spitballing some general thoughts I have on the album, and I'd love to see what you guys think as well. In the last short, I talked briefly about how their new self-titled album is going to be their last hurrah. I was hopeful that the album would be solid, being as there's no more after this, and I'd naturally hoped they'd go out with a bang. Leave us with a nice set of new music before hanging up the axes. Now, as for what I thought about the album, it was alright. There's aspects about it that I thought had merit, but then there's some other aspects that I thought were a little lacking. Let's start with the pros. There were a few songs in the album that I thought were genuinely pretty good. I was a fan of The Last Note. I thought it was a solid track that kinda reminded me of older Megadeth, which I am biased to, I'll admit. I think it's fitting as not only the closer if you exclude the bonus tracks, but as the technical last Megadeth song. It's like a swan song of Dave and the band, and I thought it was nice. I also enjoyed the use of the acoustic guitar in this track, and I feel like it was definitely the most cohesive in the record. All of the tracks had bits and pieces that I enjoyed. The instrumentation is a nice showcase of Dave, Kiko's, and the whole band's technical skill as musicians. Kiko's and the whole band's technical skill as musicians.
Stupid.
There's a lot of fast-paced, intricate leads, which is a staple of Megadeth, and that's cool. I'm a fan of that. I thought a lot of the leads in the record were solid. There's a lot of thrashy riffs, which again we know Dave is a fan of. I have more to talk about with this, but we'll get there in a little bit. The album still stays true to Megadeth's roots, while mixing it up a smidge, making sure that one album doesn't sound the same as the last, which Megadeth has always been good at. This album has a unique vibe that I think kinda helps its memorability even more than the songs at times, for me at least. This might seem odd, but to me this album has a nostalgic feel. Maybe it's partially due to the fact that I know that this is going to be the last record, and I look upon this swan song and see the history of Megadeth flash before my eyes. I think another part of the memorability for me is just that Dave and the gang are going out with honor. It's not like so many bands who have been doing it for forever and just won't quit, even though they probably definitely should. Looking at you, Motley Crue. Some bands even having farewell tours only to come back and start touring again. Listen, I get music is your life, but at some point you gotta hang it up, man. You had a good career, just enjoy your life. Please. Please! But not Megadeth. Dave is giving us one final record with a complimentary tour, and that's it. Presumably. Please! I'll have a lot less respect if it turns out that Dave just does what a bunch of other old rock stars do, but hey, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Assuming this is really the last hurrah, seeing this album as the final entry really just makes me look back and appreciate the effect Megadeth has had on my life. In another sense, a few of the tracks, notably I Don't Care, feel like Dave is trying to tap back into a younger version of himself. Back to a time when he was more angsty and didn't care about anything. Or Let There Be Shred, paying homage to what he built his career from. In that sense, it also creates a sense of nostalgia. But what's kinda cool is you can also see Dave writing about other facets of his long and successful life, or the road Megadeth has traveled over all these years. Tracks like Hey God and The Last Notes, respectively, for example. It's kinda neat to see both sides of that coin, and I think that's fitting for this album. All of this definitely adds to the unique and nostalgic vibe that I get from this record. Now, I want to talk about some aspects that fell flat. I mentioned how this album has intricate playing, punchy riffs, and heavy instrumentation, all sorts of that stuff. All of this on paper is great, but in execution, I just don't think this album holds up as well as Megadeth's older work. It's hard to describe, but even with the energetic riffs, I just feel like some of the songs lack that oomph that so much of their previous music had. I mentioned earlier that the tracks do have certain bits and pieces that I do like. Throughout the track list, there were several riffs that I thought were cool, leads that added to the song, and segments that I thought worked in the context of the song and overall added to them. But at the same time, there were also instances where I felt certain riffs and segments in the songs were a bit lacking and not as consistently good throughout the whole song. This album at times feels more like generic thrash than the more melodic and fun side Megadeth has excelled at, which isn't inherently a bad thing. I get it if you want just a good, classic, headbanger type of song, and this album does a fine job at that. But a few of the songs just feel like it's fast-paced or in your face just for the sake of being thrash-like, or just use pretty basic thrash riffing. Again, not inherently bad, but nowadays I prefer a bit more pizzazz and depth. It doesn't pull me into the music like their older work does. I feel like there just isn't a lot of consistent cohesion that draws much feeling out of me. It doesn't do much that's really captivating me or knocking my socks off. Just look at the groovy guitar work of Peace Sells' The Conjuring, or the beautiful leads and rhythms and harmony on Rust in Peace, or the experimental yet still grounded writing of Countdown to Extinction. Euthanasia may not have been as good or as technical as Rust in Peace, but it still had that swagger. It still had the writing and rhythm that has me engaged in the songs. I don't feel that as much with this album or their newer releases. To be fair, I frankly feel the same way about their previous two releases, not just this one. Don't get me wrong, Dystopia and The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead are not bad. They both have some solid tracks, I just don't like the direction they went in as much. This self-titled record just feels very standard to me, overall, music-wise. I hate to make too many comparisons, cause I want to judge albums based on them being their own standalone projects, but I'm not taking this album or the last three albums over Peace Sells, Rust in Peace, Countdown to Extinction, Euthanasia, hell, not even The System Has Failed or United Abominations. I'm sorry. In fairness though, I will take it over Risk. It's not all like this though, don't get me wrong. This album, like the previous two, you can see some moments of really great songwriting peeking through. You can hear the roots Mustaine built Megadeth off of, and it's cool to see. It's not like they just lost their touch and these albums completely suck, no. The sound created on this album is fine. Nothing crazy, but I mean it's not like it needs to be. Again, just pretty standard. The songs on this record range from alright to pretty good. If I had to describe this album as if it came on while I was in the car, I wouldn't skip any of the songs, and I'd nod my head a bit, but I wouldn't be going apeshit, headbanging, and so immersed in the music. Just standard thrash metal that I can see appealing to me more if it had come out when I was younger. An album that's memorability more so relies on the notoriety of it being Megadeth's last album than the music itself. That's really my main gripe with it. I prefer the songwriting in older albums, and I don't think it's as effective as it used to be. The album just doesn't hit as hard for me, and that's okay. It still has merit, and I'm sure it appeals to plenty of folks, which is cool. It's still Megadeth, it still has some charm, and it does have some songs and aspects that I do appreciate, even if some of those aspects go outside of the music itself and more into the legacy Megadeth created. Oh yeah, and the Ride the Lightning cover track was whatever. Just a pretty typical cover. I don't really have much to say about it other than it exists and it's a cover. It's cool that it exists, but it isn't knocking my socks off by any means. The album isn't anything revolutionary, but overall, I'd say it is still worth at least one listen, especially if you're just into classic thrash riffs, fast-paced tempos, and wicked fingerwork for guitar solos. Or if maybe you're more of an old-school Megadeth enjoyer like myself, it's worth it just to see the swan song Dave sang for this band, as a tribute to the legacy he'll leave behind. Well, that's about all I've got to say, ladies and gentlemen. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this album. Let me know. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.